For those of you who know me and who has worked with, you'll know that oftentimes I don't get nervous. And this is the first time in a long time I've been nervous in presenting. So I just wanted to share that with you. Um, and yes, thank you for joining me today. Today I'm going to be talking about pedagogical leadership in post-secondary education, an opportunity to turn challenges into opportunities. So today I would like to acknowledge that we're presenting on the lands that are located within the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation. Now, this picture is actually within the nation's land, and it's one of my favorite camping spots. So I wanted to put Hearthstone up there. It's a lovely waterfall. Just well, come find me after, and I'll tell you. So today we're going to be talking what is pedagogical leadership, some principles of it, where did it come from, direct and indirect forms, why it's important, why I should care, and how to apply this to post-secondary roles. All right. So pedagogical leadership. Wait, where have we gone? Here we go. Pedagogical leadership refers to the practice of guidance and direction of the study and practice of teaching and learning. Now, I know Jim is sitting there, and Jim's thinking, Rob, that sounds an awful lot like instructional leadership that was first introduced in '54 by Mackenzie and Corey. And Udante is sitting there thinking, okay, that sounds a lot like what Bavosi was talking about in '84. Well, the instructional leadership model is actually slightly different. It's described as actions that school principals take and delegates to others to promote growth in student learning. Steve, would I be able to get you to come up and control this? We seem to be out of control here, jumping around a bit. So we'll keep in mind instructional leadership. The focus there is on what school principals do. Now, pedagogical leadership is slightly different. Can you ask one more? There. So pedagogical leadership is focusing directly on process of learning and teaching, developing curriculum, setting goals, ensuring the quality of teaching. Additionally, it focuses on a larger context. It focuses on the environment where learning and teaching comes from, provision of resources, management of competencies, and making sure the environment is well suited. So yes. Wow, we're getting more people in here. It's even more nerve-wracking now. Just so we don't have an issue. All right. So some of the principles around pedagogical direction. Yes. Leading from a place of vision and values. It's important that leaders set the goal, set the vision, and that it's student-centered. We are just for the students. Oh, let's hope. Let's be back up. Yeah, back, Rob. Sorry. Okay. Cultivating supportive relationships. And it's about working with the team. Because as we were earlier in the opening talk, it's not about one individual. It's about working as a responding to cultural, social, environmental, and economic contexts. Now, I don't know about you folks, but over the last decade, we have seen so much change going on. Sometimes it feels like you're pivoting so much that you're like a ballerina on one toe, just spinning and spinning and spinning. Professions, it's important to keep that standard of professionalism because it's the standard of professionalism that you set, and everyone will rise to that. Everyone will try to rise to that. Create the conditions for learning. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about it. And having a high image of educators. And again, we're going to be coming back to this. So, where did it come from? Next slide. There we go. Pedagogical leadership actually came from the early childhood education and rail. It was first studied over in Finland in the early 2000s. And in Finland, they've got a very tightly regulated, tightly structured early childhood or ECE framework. And so they found that leaders that were highly engaged, highly communicative with their ECE team had a much higher rate of success. And I don't know if you folks work with any early childhood people, educators, but they're all about community. It's all about sharing. It's all about building together. It's love. So in Finland, it was the early 2000s. A few years later, in the UK, it was identified in the elementary school that principals that demonstrated these principles of the institutions that demonstrated these practices, again, showed a higher level of success. It actually came over to Canada in the early 2010s. It was introduced into the early childhood world by Coughlin and Bayard in 2010s. And that was specifically for the early childhood environment. Then it started showing up in other areas. In the mid 2010s, there was a conference over at U of A where they were introducing it into the K 12 system. It was Brandon, Sarah, Brazen, Brown, and Keith. It was really quite interesting because there's no mention of it in the K 12 system prior to that. But the conference was about reimagine education. So that's where it came from. Next slide, please. Thank you. So pedagogical leadership, there's really two forms. There's direct and indirect form of pedagogical leadership. And the direct form is bringing it right into the classroom. What's happening in the classroom? And this is where the faculty have a chance to demonstrate leadership. They're leading the classroom. They're leading the learning from hopefully a student-centric point of view. In an indirect fashion, this is more for faculty and instructors to engage. And again, this is more of an environmental, so a technical form. All right. Here we got a lovely little graphic that does show about direct pedagogical leadership going into learning and teaching. And then the indirect is about building competencies, strategic resourcing, and learning environment, and the effect that it and the positive effect it does have on the teaching and learning. Okay, your pedagogical leadership. This is in the classroom. So this is a challenge for educators to reflect, to create intentional and reflective practice. Uh, Asking questions to inspire themselves and others to develop intentional practice. So, how are we supporting our teams? Now, I mentioned story time. When I was a young instructor, a long time ago, when I had original colored hair, I was in the classroom, and I remember first week or so, I was nervous. Didn't have a lot of experience, and I didn't really work with a lot of students. There was a more senior instructor. Her name was Nikki. Nikki was a nursing instructor, and Nikki was great. Just but great. I asked her to come sit in my classroom and to take a look and give me feedback out. She gave me some phenomenal feedback, and I listened. She challenged me to become a better teacher, and that's really what started me on my journey. A few weeks later, I invited her back just to show where I had come from and where I had gotten to. Again, she provided me feedback to be able to challenge me to become better craft. And my craft at the time was teaching. Indirect pedagogical leadership. This is about, next one. This is about making sure the faculty have what they need to be successful. I have seen some classrooms that actually been in some classrooms where I had to spend 20 minutes looking for a whiteboard marker. Has anyone else come across that? Oh, I see there's a good smile. That's wasting valuable time. As an administrator, we need to be able to create that environment to be able to have the faculty be successful in the teaching and learning process to allow the students to be successful. And so, yes. Uh, Next one. So, why is pedagogical leadership important? Well, we want to make sure we enhance the teaching and learning quality. We want to promote evidence-based practices, evidence-based teaching practices. For those of you who may not know me, I'm currently in my doctoral journey, and I'm learning a wide range of material. There's so much wonderful things, and what I'm doing is I'm bringing it back to my school. I'm saying, okay, as a school, can we be better? Can I bring in this? uh, Curriculum development and assessment. I was just in a session and they were talking about how important that is. Improve student outcomes. Um, I know, uh, I know many of us are often thinking, okay, the students are glassy-eyed, they're checked out, they're on their phones, they're not listening. Right? I know. So, uh, how do we engage and asking the question and setting up reflective practice is a good way to encourage them to become involved. Creating inclusive learning environments, of course, and promoting critical thinking, communication, and learning skills. Empowered faculty development. Empowered faculty development is important because we've all that when I was at school, long time ago, I was sitting in the classroom. I remember there were some professors that were just amazing. And that one professor particularly who would sing songs and he would tell stories about back in the 30s. He was that old. But he then we had some professors that were still using the same acetates that they had been 30 years ago. And I remember at the beginning of one class, he pulled out acetates. He actually wiped off the dust and put it on the overhead. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm sure no one does that here. Well, I know you guys don't do that here. We need to make sure our teams are working together, collaborating, and mentoring each other. Just like that story earlier with Nikki, it's about finding opportunities to help support each other in a collaborative fashion. Um, as the as the first speaker said this morning, we need to build that. We need to build that team. We need to do it in collaboration. Stronger institutional culture. Now, I've been working in private ed for 25 years, long time, and what I've seen is each institution has its unique flavor. It's sweet because when I walk into Extenda, it's got a unique flavor. The students are there, the faculty are there. It's the specific culture. When I go to UCW, again, different culture altogether. I'm looking forward to going down to Alexander and talking with them about culture as well. So everyone has their unique flavor, and it's wonderful. And this is the way we build reputation. But cross departmental collaboration. I know in some organizations, I've worked closely with people from business departments, hospitality departments, from the math department, from all different departments to come up with really interesting cross collaboration partnerships. Um, let's see, adaptability to change. If there's one thing the last decade has taught us, we need to be ready for change. Doesn't matter if it's the advent of increased technology or the speed up of increased technology. Uh, Something called a pandemic that occurred. In case you guys hadn't heard of it, it was kind of big a few years ago. International students, and of course, now we're talking about AI. Right? Change is always going to happen, and as educators, what is our response? Are we going to hold on to our toxic ways that we've always done things, or are we going to are we going to run from change, or are we going to embrace change? Promotion of equity and inclusion. What are the systemic barriers? How can we reduce them? I know oftentimes I work with international students, and I love international students. Not only because they're great, they come with such diverse ideas, but really, hotlines are phenomenal. You see, yeah, hotlines are phenomenal. And of course, increased institutional reputation and student retention. With the significant drop off of international students right now, every student that walks through our door, right, because we need to maintain that student retention. When we do that, we maintain it by ensuring they get the education that they still get for. Okay, why should I care? Okay, another great thing about being up here is I get stories. I remember on the first day of university, I was young, bright eyed, again, I had my own hair color. But I was nervous. I had never been in a class before. And up at the front, my first class on my first day was Introduction to Philosophy. Right? And up at the front was Professor Stephen Bald. He was a tall, skinny guy. He had a really fuzzy beard and kind of crazy hair. He wore a lot of teeth. And when he spoke with passion. It didn't matter what topic he was talking about, he spoke with passion and flair. And so philosophy can be a little dull sometimes, but he had such an engaging way. He was a leader in concert. I found out later that they actually worked together very closely, and the other philosophy professors, not just the philosophy, they actually had all the literature people come in, they had the history people. They worked very carefully to coordinate a very smooth approach to education. Good. So, as I mentioned earlier, each student that enrolls is our customer here, and they're very right. As educators, we have the honor and the responsibility to share our knowledge. Now, I've seen some of you in the classroom, and I know you take such pride in sharing your knowledge with the students because you focus your life on this. You have become experts in the field. And you guys are the leaders in the classroom. And I know you take this responsibility very carefully. Um, it's a privilege and honor to teach in this environment because we don't know if the person sitting in the back of the room or the person sitting up front facing the next year. Each of these students is important. So, okay. Speaking of philosophy, one of my favorite philosophers, one of my favorite ancient philosophers is Socrates. I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. He's not my absolute favorite, but he's one of my top favorite ancient philosophers. So, in terms of application, how do we apply this? For faculty, when we're in the classroom, we need to build that community. We need to provide the opportunity for educators to visit and study each other's learning. I would the second session I was at today, they were talking about sharing and buddying up. It's an opportunity for people to share with each other, right? Set up professional learning communities, such as community of practice. I'll get to that. And it's important that we reflect upon how we do, why we do things, and how can we improve. Because this is our heart. This is our cry. Community of practice. This was popularized by Edwin Winger in '99. And there's three primary areas. There's the domain, which is the shared interest from the community members with competence and commitment. There is community, people working together on shared problem-solving opportunities. And then there's the practice, being able to practice or engage with the material with others. And it leads towards the community practice. Now, I was actually practicing this presentation with someone else, and they said, "Oh, it looks a lot like a martini glass." Okay, look at this. And I said, "Huh, that's so strange." Anyways, next one. All right. Administrators. So, uh, oftentimes in colleges, universities, there's faculty, there's administrators, and then there's the leaders. So, administrators have a very important role. They also are leaders. They are leaders within their division, within their role, because people will come to them. Um, Cultivate supportive relationships. Again, faculty are critical. Faculty are the ones that are sitting in the classroom every day. This is the face of our customer. And so we need to recognize that, and we need to be supportive so that they can go do the good work that they do. Professionalism. As I pointed out, maintaining the setting and maintaining that standard of professionalism that we want everyone else to be able to come to. So, and then again, a high image of educators. These educators are the ones in the classroom. So every day they go in and they're asked difficult questions and they have to talk about their punch. And it can be difficult. Okay. And finally, institutional leaders. Leading from a place of vision and values, having a student-centric approach. I know that there's some institutional leaders in reality, and as we all know that there are competing priorities. Oftentimes, there's competing priorities. For those of you who have seen it, um, again, we need to remember we're not selling cars, we're not selling newspapers. We are providing an education. We are building the leaders of tomorrow's generation. And we need to make sure that our vision is there. And it's that we build this vision with our team. How did we want to build these leaders? And this is why it's important to be able to have that collaboration. And this leads into the next one, cultivating supportive relationships, working with the team. Because these people, uh, administrators, co-leaders, faculty, even the students. Students themselves will actually give you feedback on how to improve. And this is valuable feedback. Responding to cultural, social, environmental, and economic contexts. Again, COVID was kind of a COVID was a disruptor. And then right after COVID, we had a severe cut in the international students. Right. And we're all kind of figuring out where to go from there. And now we're doing AI. So we need to be responding to these ongoing shifts that really rock the world is important, and we can't do it ourselves. When you're working at a college or university, you're working with absolutely brilliant people. Bring them in on the conversation. Um, Professionalism, again, setting that high bar, letting people rise to the challenge, and there's opportunity, right? Create conditions for learning. Your faculty shouldn't need to spend 20 minutes with the IT. And again, high image of educators. Okay, questions. Wow. Either a clinical autistic or a theater call.
So you talked about, being institutional leaders and competing priorities. And I think given that we're just private education, I think that's more relevant than, ever anywhere else.
Yes.
So as an educational leader, how do you guys how do you balance, from being student centric, and being pedagogic and focusing on pedagogy and saying, well, we can only have so many students in the class to provide quality education versus, we need to make this ROI and this, EBITDA and stuff like that, and so we're going to pack that class with 50. So how is the
Hey, that is a that is the magic question. So I think you faced that question before, haven't you? Yeah.
No, I'm from a personal experience having to, teach that, like you said, being in front of the class and going from a class of 20 to a class of 50 and trying to focus on the pedagogy and creating these supportive environments and everything. I'm just like minded blows.
I know the financial pressures on institutional leaders are unbelievable because oftentimes you have people that are requiring specific bottom line targets that you need to make. With a shrinking student bodies and with well, I know there right now there's a lot of colleagues that are going through making that bottom line right cutting like cutting departments, like faculties, like I can it's a blood. Honestly, I don't have all the answers on that. That's one. That's one we struggle with. Um, but I do know working with a team of creative problem solvers does help alleviate that. So it's not that one person needs to put forth a plan. One person needs to bring people together to figure out a way to go forward. As you were talking with, as Jessica was talking about this morning, it's about, okay, this is the situation. How can we move forward? I know that for those of you who are facing the financial pressures, may not be the answer, but that's what I got. So, and recognizing you don't have all the answers is a helpful tool. Having the humility to recognize that it's not all about what goes on in one person's soul. So